Marc-Andre Fleury tied Patrick Roy for second most in all-time wins. Marc-Andre Fleury is a top 10 all-time goaltender.
Shot. What the hell is this? Shot. And I like Marc-Andre Fleury. He's a good guy, good dude, likable. The top 10 goaltender of all time. So you're telling me that you're going to put him ahead of Ed Belfour, Patrick Roy, Marty Brodeur, Dominic Hasek, Jacques Plante, Ken Dryden. No, absolutely not. I could go. I would take Tony Esposito over him as well. There are other goaltenders that I would absolutely take over Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury won one Stanley Cup as a starter. In 2016, he got benched basically for Matt Murray. Matt Murray won them the 2016 Stanley Cup. When in 2017, he got them to the conference finals, and then
conference finals
back, and they won the Stanley Cup with Matt Murray in that. No, I'm sorry, but Marc-Andre Fleury is not a top 10 goaltender of all time. He's a very good goaltender, a compiler. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame, but he is not, by all means, not a top 10 goaltender of all time. Terry Sawchuk is another guy I would absolutely take over him. If we really need to go, over, I would take Henrik Lundqvist over him. Marc-Andre Fleury wasn't the best goaltender of his generation. He is not a top 10 goaltender of all time. Sorry, he's not. He's second in wins and has 3 wins. Okay. He's got 1 Vezina trophy, and he only has 1 Stanley Cup as a starter. 1 Stanley Cup as a starter. Henrik Lundqvist's lifetime numbers are better than him, and Henrik Lundqvist is widely considered the best goalie of his generation. Marc-Andre Fleury is not. End of story.
Well, and Phil, I'm going to actually not block your face and go with shot 2 on this. And my reasoning for talking about this is, I'm not even sure, extending from what you're saying, I definitely can't put him ahead of Carey Price and Henrik Lundqvist in his own generation. So now...
Carey Price at his peak was far better than Marc-Andre Fleury. But Carey Price won a Hart and a Vezina in the same season. Yeah, albeit 88 points was the scoring lead that year. That was terrible, Jamie Benn. But longevity is one thing and compiling is another. But Marc-Andre Fleury was the sieve for the Pittsburgh Penguins for so long. He was their scapegoat. He was their fallout guy. He is the 4th most important player on that team. Sorry, not sorry.
So this is what makes him more interesting as a case study, if you will, Phil. Because as you just said, everything is 100% true. He then goes to Vegas and completely reshapes people's opinions about him, takes him to a Stanley Cup final in his first season, wins a Vezina trophy there, is then passed around to Chicago and then to Minnesota. Hasn't really dealt with the success, but he hasn't had that. You remember that meme years ago, nice try, but I dodged your shot again when it came to him.
This is a great, great analogy right here. Frank Gore,
great comparison.
Is the 3rd leading rusher overall because of longevity. Is he a top 10 running back of all time? Okay. No, he's not. No. Are you putting him ahead of Emmitt Smith? No. Are you putting him ahead of Jim Brown? No. Are you putting him ahead of Walter Payton? No. Are you putting him ahead of Barry Sanders? No. Here's another
putting him ahead of Roger Craig.
Is Emmitt Smith a better running back than Barry Sanders? No. Emmitt Smith got 3 championships because he played on a better team and played, 6 more years than Barry Sanders to break his rushing record? Barry Sanders retired, about 1,000 yards short of Walter Payton? Yeah, no. I'm telling you right now, Marc-Andre Fleury, great that he got to where he was and wins. But if you're going to try to tell me that he's better than the goaltenders in the top 10, I have another thing coming for you, man. Longevity does not mean that. No, Mario, I was not talking about you. I was talking about responses like
Yeah.
This one here from Pete. Sorry, I'm going to call you out, Pete. The longevity and compilation elevates him. Yeah, no, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you out there.
In this one, I have to agree with you on that. I don't think that's exactly the case. And we got two more guys. Then we're going to be.
So I want the people that keep the energy for that argument to keep that energy for when it comes to talking about Derek Jeter. Because for years I hear Derek Jeter's a compiler. Derek Jeter's a compiler. He's overrated. This and that. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? That if that argument works for Marc-Andre Fleury, then it has to work for Derek Jeter.
I've said this before, Phil, and let me be really quick about this. Because we do have two more topics and maybe a little bit of Q&A because I got to get out to everybody that's outside waiting for me. But Derek Jeter has more 200-hit seasons than the New York Mets as a franchise. Derek Jeter wasn't a compiler. Derek Jeter he's not the best Yankee of all time. He's not even close. I put him at 7, but that's just off the top of my head. And that's not to offend him. It's more to talk about the greatness of the organization.
And if you want to say that we don't see goaltenders doing what Marc-Andre Fleury has done, yes, we have. It's Martin Brodeur. And Dominic Hasek and Patrick Waugh are still better goaltenders than him.
I would take Patrick Waugh in a heartbeat any day.
Sorry.
And you know what? Marc-Andre Fleury would probably say the same thing, Phil. Refused to play for the Flyers, according to reports. The Flyers traded him to Anaheim for Jamie Drysdale and a second-round pick. Actually, there's two topics in this one. The Flyers handled the Cutter Gauthier situation correctly.
Yeah, I would say they did as good of a job as they could with this. It came out today on Daily Faceoff with Frank Saravalli, Johnny Lazarus, and Colby Cohen that John LeClaire and who was the other one that went? Was John LeClaire? Oh, Patrick Sharp. Sorry. John LeClaire and Patrick Sharp. How could I forget Patrick Sharp when we met him in Vegas? But they went to visit him and talk about how everything was going, and he basically sent his like coach out and said that he didn't want to play for them and didn't want to talk to them. So. But Kevin Hayes ended up getting caught up in this talk because they're close, and he received death threats, and people were saying things that we're happy Jimmy is dead or something like that. Just scummy things coming from some terrible fans. They handled it as best as they could. They got back, although I'm kind of iffy on Drysdale right now because I wonder if he ever stays healthy enough to become the defenseman that he could become. He's a great skater. I wonder about his defensive game, but his health is the biggest issue because he just cannot stay healthy. So, I'm going to say round here. They handled it as best as they could.
I think it takes some serious balls, for lack of a better word. I was trying to figure out which one to go with this. Keith Jones, guest of our show, got to applaud the way he handled it. You say you don't want to be a Flyer? All right, we'll move on from you. And I think getting Jamie Drysdale back, they got back a hell of a player and a second-round pick for Cutter Gauthier, who looks like he might be a pretty good player. And now Anaheim, you look at their assets that they got going, more on Anaheim in 1 second. The way that this was handled, it was handled swiftly, and it was handled correctly. Look, could they have tried to talk him into staying? Sure, they could have. But if you didn't want to listen, don't bother.
Yeah.
You don't need – we know my opinion about malcontents. You don't need the malcontents. If you can't smooth it over, you move on from them.
I don't like the Flyers as a Ranger fan, obviously, but I love the mindset and approach to this. Like, you know what? You don't want to be here. Screw you. You're out. We don't care. And they got what they got for him. They did it quickly. They didn't drag his name through the mud. They got it done. They didn't turn this into a Jack Eichel Buffalo Sabres situation, which is great. I love the way –
Or an Eric Lindros in the Flyer situation.
The Eric Lindros situation, that goes beyond hockey, though. That goes well beyond hockey. And there were other extenuating factors. Carl and Bonnie Lindros that were involved in that.
And by the way, Phil, let's also be fair to something else. The one thing I have not heard from the Flyers themselves, Jones, Briere, anybody else, they have not said a bad word about Cutter. They've just said, you don't want to be here, you're not going to be here.
And they like I said, they've done everything right to the team, to a team. Textbook. They've handled this as well as any team can. Maybe if Chuck Fletcher, not exactly the greatest job in Philly, but
to say the least.
Keith Jones, gotta commend Keith Jones and Danny Briere and so on for handling it the way that they did. I don't think there's any real comparison between these two. Fox wanted to be with his hometown team, and I think everybody knew that, and that's why he was traded twice, because he wanted to go sign with the Rangers.
In both cases, both teams.
Gauthier said that it's supposedly Gauthier and his agent. They're going to come out and they're going to clarify it soon. I don't know exactly when they're going to do it, but that's what I heard. We'll get more information and we'll see what happened. But I mean, Philadelphia did everything they could. They played it. They played their hand exactly the way they should have played it, and they got a decent return for them. So kudos to Philadelphia.
The ripple effect of this, Phil, is Trevor Zegras is now all the way up to 4th on the daily face-off trade board. The Ducks will deal Trevor Zegras by the deadline.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think if he's, I'm going to say shot actually. He's hurt, so now he's out for a bit. So that's going to change that up. But I also think it's going to be a tougher offseason type deal for Trevor Zegras. I think this deal is probably a little bigger, if anything. I do get the sense that Verbeek is looking to have a bigger, stronger, faster team, kind of like the Anaheim teams from like 2015, the 2010s, basically. Like that type of build, a big team that could skate and play physical. I think Verbeek is going towards that. And I think he's doing kind of like a flush, if you will, kind of how like Drury did to Gorton's guys, got rid of a lot of Gorton's guys over the first couple of years. I think Verbeek is doing that for the previous regime. So I do think that you'll eventually see Zegras dealt, but I don't think it's by the deadline.
I'm actually only going to go beer, and that's because there's a lot that's making me kind of wonder whether or not this is going to happen. And just you summarize as best you can, and perfectly, I should say, Verbeek and his thinking on all these players. Because you get this feeling that he wants to get away from finesse. He wants to get away from just purely skill guys. But you need a mesh of those guys if you're going to succeed. The teams that are just brute force, grind it out, they don't win in the playoffs. The teams that are just finesse, they don't win in the playoffs. So you need that mix that's going to be in there. You got to say, though, that his stock might be at the highest or lowest it's been. I don't know which one to say it is. Because if you do get him, you could potentially have a number one center signed for relatively pretty good money, and you got him locked up for 2 more years. And he already had the contract dispute with them, so maybe there's a little bit of bad blood. Maybe they try to move him at the deadline. But on the other hand, there's no rush for Pat Verbeek. He doesn't have to do anything. He can just sit back and relax.
Yeah, there's definitely some sort of bad blood with Verbeek and Zegras. Obviously, the contract, talks definitely played a factor. I mean, if he was somebody that I thought could buy into Peter Laviolette's system, and Chris Drury wasn't the way that he was with doing like his management kind of flush, I would think that Zegras would be somebody that the Rangers would look to bring in. But he seems very immature to me, and he doesn't seem like the type of guy that would buy in to play that type of winning hockey that you need in the playoffs. He seems like the type of guy that would probably disappear come playoff time. And I don't think the Rangers will even pursue this. I don't even think you'll see them involved.
I don't know if he's ready to be a winning hockey player yet.
Yeah.
He's still thinking, let me go out, score as many points. This is what I can do. And it's funny because in the World Juniors, he was amazing. He was clutch, everything you wanted from a player like that.
But
I still think his
softer, type of game. I mean, that's still a more skill predicated game.
But I think his focus is still on being a star. He'd rather be the guy that's known for the Michigan pass and the dodgeball shootout move in the All-Star game weekend. And until he kind of says, I want to win a Stanley Cup and I'll do anything I want for that, I don't think you're going to get anywhere with him just yet. Not saying Trevor Zegras can't turn into a better player, because you can take that energy he's using.
He needs the Bowman to the Yzerman and Fedorov and the Hitchcock to the Modano. That's really what he needs to get to that next level. And I don't think he's ready for that yet.
Please like and subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of great hockey content and an entertaining interactive podcast. So check us out and our library of videos.
Your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.